If We're Being Honest. Written by The Queen of Wump. Read for you by Charcoal Bits. Chapter 4. Conversations. Trigger warnings in this chapter include nightmares and adorable lesbians. The movie night went pretty well after all that. The anger that had been harshly directed at Katsuki all day was just about gone after his apology, for which Izuku was so glad. He knew Katsuki was a better person now, and he was glad his classmates could see it too. He was learning and growing to be the hero he had always wanted to be, which was beautiful and amazing, and it made Izuku wondrously happy. He hoped it made everyone else happy too. The blonde seemed to be nonchalant about this development, but Izuku could see the relief in his eyes as Kirishima moved over to let him sit down. And no, Izuku didn't mean to overhear on his way to his seat, but he didn't have almost 22 hero journals because of his lack of eavesdropping skills. "Sorry for hurting you," Katsuki muttered. 2 apologies in one day? This was proof that he had changed. Honestly. Izuku felt himself smile at the thought. Thankfully, at this point, no one else seemed to be listening, too caught up in movie picking again. "I understand if you don't want to be in a relationship with someone like me." "I know you're better now," Kirishima said with what sounded like a frown. Izuku was in his seat now, which was only a few seats away from them, so he could still hear everything. Maybe he shouldn't be listening. "Can we talk about this later?" Katsuki grunted. "Alone." "Yeah, of course." Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. He did not need Katsuki mad at him for that one. "So what are we watching first?" Kirishima asked, putting an arm around his boyfriend. Izuku hid a smile behind his hand as he saw the blush lean against him with a well-hidden blush. "Something classic," Mina said with vigor. "Like Disney or DreamWorks." "I haven't seen any of those," Shinso said. "I didn't watch many movies growing up." "What?" Kaminari yelled incredulously. "Were the people who raised you monsters?" "Well, actually..." "We have to watch a classic then," Uraraka exclaimed. "Like Tangled or How to Train Your Dragon." "That's a good one," Sue said. "My brothers and sisters both like the one without the teeth." "His name is Toothless, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have any teeth," Izuku said with a small frown, slightly upset with his friends not knowing these simple facts. "I'm confused." Shoto looked at him with a bewildered expression. "His name is Toothless, but he has teeth?" "Not you too," he groaned. "It's official," Mina said. "We're watching it. Anyone who objects, speak now or forever hold your peace." "Wait," Kaminari said. "Which movie?" "Were you not paying attention?" Katsuki said. "You were just a part of this conversation." "I zoned out, I guess," Kaminari said with a sheepish grin. Mina waved her arms in the air. "Everyone shut up! I'm playing it! Movie time! No talking!" But the problem was that the people who hadn't seen this particular movie, Shoto, Shinso, Sue, and a few others, would normally not talk because they were either socially awkward or too considerate of others. But because of this truth quirk, Izuku found himself answering his boyfriend's whispered questions every few minutes, and he could hear others doing so for the others as well. "Hey, Sue," someone asked at one point, "if your brothers and sisters have watched this, why haven't you seen it?" "They're a lot younger than me," she said, not taking her eyes off the screen. "I usually put the movie on for them while I did stuff around the house. My parents both worked a lot, so I was in charge of the housework and taking care of my siblings. It was hard." Izuku looked over at his friend, who looked slightly red in the face as to what she had just said. "That's really admirable," he said after a moment. "I'm glad your parents had someone they could trust to do that for them." Everyone else was looking at her now, too, and someone else had paused the movie. "Do you want to talk about it?" Uraraka asked softly from next to her, putting a hand on her arm. Sue shook her head. "Not really. I mean, sometimes it was stressful, but my brother is old enough to look after the rest of them now that I'm here all the time. If not, I probably would have left UA." "But being a hero was your dream," Uraraka said, obviously distressed at the idea of her friend leaving. "I know that, but I care more about my family than anything else. I would have figured something out, but now I have the chance to sign with a good agency and support them. Izuku watched as something began swimming in Uraraka's eyes. He knew exactly why. I'll sign with a good agency and make plenty of money. Then I'll be able to let my parents have an easy life. It felt like they were all intruding on a moment between the two of them, but no one had the heart to say anything. I know how you feel, she said, smiling sadly. I'm going to do the same thing for my parents. That's why I really wanted to become a hero in the first place. I know this probably isn't the best thing to say right now, Yaomomo said with a slight blush. But I want to apologize for anything I may have said in the past about my family's wealth and how I take it for granted. And really, I would trade that wealth for a family like either of yours. I don't remember the last time I spoke to my mother or father outside of a scheduled appointment. Uraraka blanched in shock. Yaomomo, sorry, that was rude of me, she said with a very forced laugh. No, not that, Uraraka exclaimed, before realizing her outburst and speaking softly. I mean the thing about your parents. That's horrible. Yaomomo shrugged, like this was no different than discussing the weather, but her eyes told a different story. It's not like I have many opportunities to see them now anyway. I much prefer the company of all you. Oh, Yaomomo, Mina squealed. We love you too. I'm glad I got to know you too, Sue said. She smiled widely as Uraraka brought her in for a hug. I'm glad I got to know all of you. I'm glad I get to be here. Hagakure and Mina both jumped up and made an almost inhuman noises of joy, joining in on the hug. I love you guys, they both said at the same time. Yaomomo, Jiro, Uraraka said sternly, get over here. They both awkwardly joined the group of girls hugging each other, and Izuku found himself smiling. He loved the girls in their class and how close they all were, even if they weren't many of them. He almost found himself frowning, wondering if the hero course was sexist somehow, but that was a question for another time. Are we gonna keep watching the movie? Shoto whispered in his ear, or at least he tried to. It was much louder than he probably meant it to be, making all the girls' sweat drop. Sorry, Mina said. We got caught up in the moment right there. Let's keep watching. About time, Katsuki grumbled. I want to see them crush the big dragon. It's my favorite part. The movie started playing again, but Izuku was more focused on holding in a snicker when he saw Bakugo's face turn pink from what he had just said. They watched a couple more movies after that. A few Disney, a few superhero movies from the pre-quirk era, and man, were those fascinating to watch. He could talk about those for hours. By the end of the one about, according to Shoto, a big purple guy looking for space rocks, everyone was about ready for bed. I'm gonna head on up, Ojiro said, and other people muttered their agreements. Izuku felt himself yawn. Yeah. You ready for bed, Shoto? He yawned too. Yeah. Wait, guys, Mina said in surprise. Are you sure you don't want to watch one more? We are all tired and have school in the morning, Ida said sternly, robotically moving his arms like usual. It would be wise to try and sleep now. We'll have more movie nights, Uraraka reassured. We can watch more then. But I'm not ready to go to bed yet, she almost whined. You can stay up in your own room, Sue said. We're tired. I'm tired too, so if I go to my room, I'll fall asleep. Isn't that a good thing? Kirishima said, standing up. Katsuki grumbled something about losing his pillow and stood up too. We have class tomorrow, and it's already after midnight. It's not a good thing, because then I'll just have really bad nightmares like always, she said, before slapping a hand over her mouth. Everyone that had been walking away turned back around abruptly, clearly at a loss for words. Mina had nightmares? Izuku could understand nightmares. He definitely had them from all the stuff they had been through together. But they weren't consistent, like she were implying hers were. All the times she had pleaded with them to stay up longer finally made sense. Come on, guys, one more round. I bet you, double or nothing. We can stay up a bit longer, right? If Aizawa can sleep in class, so can we. How often do you have them? Kirishima asked softly. Mina looked like she was going to start crying, but with an encouraging nod from Kirishima, she slowly lowered her hand. Almost every night, she whispered. I don't understand why. I haven't been through as much as you guys, but no one else talks about having them. Is there something wrong with me? Of course not, Kirishima said, slowly approaching her. I have them too. I think we all do. I dream about the USJ and the training camp and about Katsuki being kidnapped. Well, you went to rescue him, she said with a slight sniffle. She crossed her arms indignantly, like she was mad at herself. And you were all sent to fight villains at the USJ. I was just stuck at the front, and I bet you don't have them every night. Kirishima winced. No, I don't. They're more of a 2 or 3 times a week thing. I think we all have nightmares, Mina, Uraraka said, quietly, as she went up and took her friend's hand. I don't think you can go through what we have without getting any. Mina groaned, plopping down on the couch and pulling Uraraka down with her. I guess I should have realized that, but no one else ever said anything. I thought I was going crazy or something, and I'm almost scared to go to sleep at this point. I'm just dragged back to there, where you guys are all dying in front of me, and I can't do anything to stop it. Mina's head shot up and her face turned bright pink. Wow, hello, oversharing. She whipped around and looked right at Izuku, and he almost stepped back in surprise. Is this how you felt this whole time? Because this sucks. Izuku found himself laughing weakly. He wondered how many more people would find themselves in that position by the end of the month. Yeah, it's pretty rough. Ugh, Mina said. At least I'm not alone, but I still get them way more often, apparently. Kirishima sat down next to her and started rubbing her back. Maybe you should talk to Aizawa if they're getting this bad. He could give you help. We're only going to go through more stuff as pro heroes. I have them pretty often, too, Katsuki said awkwardly, surprising everyone, especially Mina. If her wide eyes and hanging jaw said anything, he sat down across from her and crossed his arms, glaring at the ground. You're not alone in this, I swear. Every night, that handsy bastard stares me down like I'm still gonna join his emo boy band. It's annoying as fuck. Mina started to tear up again. I can't believe I'm complaining about my stupid nightmares when you literally got kidnapped by the League of Villains. Don't do that, Katsuki snapped. You can't compare trauma like that. Just because I went through something shitty doesn't mean you didn't. You're allowed to have feelings. Everyone looked at him like he had grown a second head. Katsuki's eyes twitched. I hate this stupid quirk. Thanks, Bakugo, Mina said with a wobbly smile. She was the only one not staring at the blonde like he had switched with some weird clone. I appreciate that. Something in Katsuki's eyes softened. No problem, Mina. Mina mock gasped. Did everyone hear that? He said my name, not raccoon eyes. I will fight you. They ended up having a giant sleepover in the common room. No one really wanted to leave after all they had talked about. They stayed up late into the night, talking about everything and nothing at the same time. The problem was that they ended up staying up way later, and they ended up sleeping in since all of their alarm clocks were in their rooms. Meaning none of them showed up for class, not even Ida, who usually had a perfect internal clock. Aizawa was so tired that morning, so when he walked into his homeroom class to see absolutely none of his students, he walked right back out. They ended up not getting into too much trouble for their late-night impromptu sleepover. Aizawa was furious at first, but when Mina stepped forward and shyly explained that they had done it all for her, something in his eyes softened. They were definitely softer when he informed him and everyone else that she had no nightmares that night. Everyone was so relieved and thrilled and Aizawa eventually gave permission for the girls to take turns spending the night with her from then on. That didn't stop Ida from profusely apologizing for his lack of leadership skills and whatnot, but he also defended his classmates with the fact that they couldn't have used their phones to wake themselves up, since they didn't have them anymore. Aizawa simply rolled his eyes, but not without hiding a smile beneath his captured weapon. It was later during their hero training where Izuku screwed up. He liked to think it wasn't his fault. They were all tired from their lack of sleep the night before, so everyone was a little off. Even Katsuki was sloppy with his movements as they attempted to save dummies from a building set to collapse. Of course, Izuku being himself, he was so worried about the hostages that he didn't notice everyone else was already out of the building and it had already begun to collapse. Of course, it would actually collapse because UA didn't know the meaning of the word subtle. He woke up in a hospital bed. This much he was used to. He was also used to his friends at his side asking him worried questions about how he was feeling. And he was used to lying to them about how he felt fine. What he wasn't used to was the stupid truth quirk. "I'm really tired and sore," he said, when Uraraka asked him how he was doing. He immediately groaned in frustration. "I hate this." "I don't," Shoto said nonchalantly, picking at his nails. "You can't brush us off anymore. It must be a nightmare for you, though." "Midoriya, you need to be more careful," Ida said from his side. He looked tenser than usual. "As I've said before, when you end up in situations like this, it only reminds me of my brother, and how I don't want you to have the same fate." Izuku stared at him. He remembered Ida saying something similar when Katsuki had been kidnapped, but he had only thought of it to be the adrenaline and drive to keep them from going that made him say it. But now, when he was pretty much fine with no impending danger... "Do you think that all the time?" he couldn't help but ask. "Are you really that worried about me?" "Of course I am," Ida said. "You've become like a brother to me." Izuku smiled, trying not to let tears form in his eyes. And of course he was failing, as per usual. "You too." The day continued on, as did the rest of the week, but it wasn't quite normal. The truth quirk was still there, so everything was slightly to the left. Not everything that came out of their mouths was some world-altering secret. They blurted out their random thoughts while talking to each other. It made for some very interesting conversations. "So, wait, you've never killed anyone in Among Us?" Uraraka asked with a frown. Izuku looked down sheepishly. "No, I can't bring myself to. When I'm imposter, I kind of just wander around and wait for everyone to complete their tasks. Killing them makes me feel mean." Shoto stared at him with a blush. "You're too pure, you know that?" "You know you could beat everyone without breaking a sweat as the imposter, right?" Uraraka asked. "Oh yes, I'm very aware." "Can I borrow your shampoo?" Sora asked Kirishima, who was sitting at the table doing homework. "I'm all out." "No, mine's for special for my hair dye." "Wait," Bakugo deadpanned. "You dye your hair?" "You guys didn't know?" Mina said, sounding surprised. "You can see it from his roots before he dyes it, like every month." "Mina, you know me before I started dyeing it. That's cheating." She stuck her tongue out at him. "What color is your natural hair?" Bakugo asked, looking at him intently. "Black," he said, running his fingers through it. "They blend into the red, so the roots are not that noticeable." The blonde hummed and kept looking at him for a moment. "I like your hair like this, by the way," he said, almost as an afterthought. "But I'd like it any way you want it, I think." He turned bright red when Mina started along, drawn out. "Aww!" He yelled. "Shut up, you metaphorically didn't hear anything." Mina and Cyril started cackling at that, and his face just turned even redder, almost matching Kirishima's hair. "So let me get this straight," Aizawa said, pinching the bridge of his nose. "You know that you need at least 5,000 calories a day because of your quirk, and you've known this for a long time." "Yes," Yamomo said. "And you would like to eat that much, but your parents have you on a strict diet." "Yes." Aizawa looked ready to either take a nap and never wake up, or go kill a man. "Well, since you're in the dorms now, you're UA's ward, and therefore my responsibility. I'll have Lunch make you a new meal plan to help ease you back on a healthy diet." Yamomo looked shocked, and somewhat close to tears. "Thank you, sir." "I'm just saying, Bakugo is the most rebellious person in our class," Kaminari argued. I don't know. He's never tried to kill someone for vigilante justice, Midoriya said. Wait, someone said. Who tried to kill someone for vigilante justice? Are you really French, Ioma? But of course, mon ami. Why would you think otherwise? Well... Wait, you like classic rock? Jiro asked, her face pink. Yeah, rock and roll, Yamomo said, putting a finger on her chin. You were the one that introduced me to those genres, actually. I was raised on classical instrumental music. Jiro turned around and shouted, That's cool, before briskly walking away. Yamomo was left to wonder what all that was about, since she couldn't see the other girl's face was turned even pinker. That didn't mean her own face wasn't flushed, though. I own 6 All Might plushies, and... Yeah, well, I own 20, you fucking nerd. I wish I was allowed to own an All Might plushie, Todoroki said sadly off to the side of the battle for the title of the ultimate All Might fan, and Uraraka just nodded her head in sympathy. Why don't you ever wear a tie? Kaminari asked. Bakugo looked at him oddly for a moment. I don't like things around my neck. So the opposite of a choke kink, Sero said, absent-mindedly from across the room. Kirishima spit his drink everywhere. Sero looked up, fearing for his life, and rightfully so. There was a day during combat training where Shinso and Aizawa were standing next to each other with the same expression on their face. Todoroki stared with a calculating expression. His boyfriend noticed and immediately put his face in his hands. Shoto, I swear, not again! Your favorite hero's not even Japanese? Kaminari asked with a bewildered stare. Sero shook his head. Nah, mine's this really cool spider-themed hero from America. He swings around just like I do. Is that his quirk? Izuku asked. No, I think his quirk was something like Sue's. He can do anything a spider can, basically, like stick to walls. What's his name? Kaminari asked. Sero smiled widely. Peter, man. Of course I care about all of you! Bakugo yelled from the kitchen at his stupid squad. Why else would I make you dinner and help you study when you clearly don't take the classes seriously? Baku, bro! Kaminari yelled. That means so much! Did you guys actually think I hated you or some shit? I mean, not really, Mina said. But you are pretty aggressive. That's just who I am, he said, a bit softer than his more anger-filled tone. I might not be the best at showing it, but I care. He pretended to yell at them when they all immediately tackled him in a group hug, and they only let go when he said, You're gonna make me burn the chicken, idiots! Kayoko was really starting to not like this quirk. It made her blurt out the most ridiculous things at the stupidest times, made Kaminari actually make sense for once, and had caused her to almost blurt her feelings out to her crush. Momo, were they close enough for that? Had admitted her favorite music genres earlier, and that would have set her mouth off if it hadn't been for her running away as quickly as she could in the other direction. She had probably left the other girls so confused. Good job, Truth Quirk. Maybe this wouldn't end badly? After all, Bakugo and Kirishima were just fine. Well, aside from Bakugo's entire past being brought to light. Yeah, Kayoko would like to avoid something like that. Midoriya and Todoroki had also started dating, right? They were happy. Aside from Midoriya later revealing he had All Might's quirk and had been quirkless, therefore ruthlessly bullied and depressed. Usual conversation material. It wasn't like confessing was a prerequisite to spilling your guts, but it didn't have a good track record. Of course, Mina and Sue had also shared their own problems, but she didn't want to risk it. But Kayoko didn't have any baggage like that, right? Nothing that could accidentally come out to light if she were to confess, either to Momo or to the class, right? The closest thing she could think of would be her dad's drinking problem, but that had always been minor, and ever since she got into hero school, he had been doing his best to get better, and had now been clean for months. If anything, she was really proud of him. Her insecurities about being a hero? That could come out too, she supposed. But it wasn't like she doubted herself all the time. She was pretty sure everyone, with maybe the exception of Bakugo, was insecure at times about their futures as heroes. With such a competitive job market, it was to be expected, and she didn't really think it would make her cry in front of everyone or anything. Oh, who was she kidding? The only reason she was really thinking about all of this was to distract herself from the real reason she didn't want to confess. Momo didn't like her back. Why else would she have not confessed her undying love to her yet? Maybe Kayoko was being a tiny bit dramatic. Of course, she hadn't confessed either, so this whole thing was a mess. All of these thoughts scrambled her brain as the first week of the truth quirk passed. She was terrified that her thoughts would blurt right out of her mouth when she was least expecting it. Thankfully, her usual calm demeanor kept anyone from asking her questions of the emotional type, so at least she had that going for her. However, Momo wasn't part of her typical friend group, so she wasn't prepared for her to approach her that Thursday afternoon in the hallway. "Are you avoiding me?" Momo had asked her, her voice small and sad. It was something she would never have asked normally. "Did I do something to offend you?" "No, I just like you more than a friend, and these feelings are making me nervous around you," she said, and immediately died inside before bolting. And now here she was, sitting in her room, trying to do her homework as she tried not to think about how much she had just screwed herself over. She really had to go and say something like that, like a complete moron. She knew her life was basically over. That is, before there was a knock at her door. Actually, scratch that. Her life was definitely over now. She held in a groan as she stood from her desk and made her way to the door, and promptly froze when she saw her standing there. "Momo?" Kayoko said on instinct before turning bright red. "Wait, yeah, Momo." "It's okay," she said, face pink. "Can I call you Kayoko?" It was so sudden and unexpected that she didn't even notice the deepening of both their blushes. "Of course." She felt her brain was melting as they both stood there, staring. Neither said anything for the longest time, but neither of them seemed to take any notice. "Do you want to come in?" Kayoko finally said, brain still trudging through molasses as she opened the door wider and started to head to her desk. "I can play us some I Love You." Kayoko was pretty sure she got whiplash from how fast she turned around. "What?" If anything, her exclamation just made Momo more nervous. "Oh, that was such an inappropriate thing to say. I'm so sorry." "It's okay," she said, finally finding her voice. And now that she had found it, the truth quirk made her unable to stop. "I love you too." The dark-haired girl looked at her with wide eyes. "Well," she cleared her throat, trying to sound like she had everything under control. Kayoko found it entertaining. "I'm glad that's settled." She let out a startled yelp as Kayoko pulled her in for a tight hug. "I'm so happy right now," she couldn't help but say before nuzzling her face into the other's neck. Like, unbelievably happy. "Me too," Momo said with a giggle that made it obvious that she was drunk on love. "I was so upset when you ran away from me earlier because I didn't get to tell you that I felt the same." Kayoko felt a pang of guilt. "I'm so sorry." "No, I'm sorry," she said, pulling away and looking straight into her eyes. Kayoko felt unbelievably vulnerable and loved every moment of it. "For making you feel like I didn't feel the same. And it doesn't matter anymore. I had to wait, like, an hour, so what?" It was Kayoko's turn to laugh lightly. She took Momo's hand and kissed her knuckles. "Guess we have one more couple to announce to the class, huh?" Momo actually looked sheepish at that. "Actually, I might have told them I was coming to confess, and that you had already confessed to me." Kayoko leaned her head back and groaned, making the other girl, was she her girlfriend now, laugh in earnest. "Of course you did," she couldn't help but add. "Can I kiss you?" Momo's face turned bright red, and Kayoko started to instantly regret asking, but Momo answered her before she could say anything else. And Momo didn't answer with words, which was perfectly fine in Kayoko's opinion. She smiled against the girl's lips, and thought that maybe this truth quirk wasn't so bad after all. Hello guys, and I'm back with another chapter of If We're Being Honest. I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much for 100 subscribers. This feels like a fever dream, honestly. I never expected I would have 100 subscribers in like the 2 weeks that I've started this channel. So that's so lovely. Also, I don't know if you've noticed, I found a new way of recording because I don't have a microphone. I'm gonna plan on asking for one for Christmas or my birthday, but I've been using my AirPods, and so I found a way of recording. I just take my AirPod out of my ear and hold it to my mouth like a mic. So maybe you noticed the audio difference because I recorded half of this like I think a few weeks back, and then, well, not a few weeks, probably like a few days back, and then I found out I could do this, and then I started doing that. Also, when I was reading the part about Spider-Man being Cerebro's favorite hero, I realized that Danger Sense, the quirk that Deku has, and Spidey Sense are the same thing. Deku just has Spidey Sense, and I think we should all take to calling it that, because honestly, it's funny. Because they're so similar. Like, they're like anxious boys, and they don't really care what happens to them as long as the rest of their friends and the rest of the world is like a-okay. So that's nice. Anyways, don't really have much to say, so I guess I'll just see you guys in the next video. Also, please drink water, eat food. Coffee does not count as a meal. Okay, bye guys.